Chair, you have quorum in attendance, and the stream is live.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning. The December 8, 2023 meeting of the Election Compliance Audit Committee is called to order. Don't believe I've received any regrets from anyone, and it appears that the members of the committee are all present. So I will dispense with having the committee coordinator call the roll, and we will move to item number 2 on the agenda this morning, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, we will move to item 3, confirmation of minutes. The meeting package 3.1 were the Election Compliance Audit Committee meetings from our July 31st meeting. And I'll ask the members of the committee if those minutes are confirmed.
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 Okay.
Yeah, confirmed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, before considering the items on today's agenda, I would like to clarify the committee's purpose and process today. With respect to items 4.1 and 4.2, the committee will be considering the city clerk's reports with respect to apparent contraventions of contribution limits under the Municipal Elections Act 1996, and will decide whether to commence a legal proceeding against the contributors for any apparent contraventions. With respect to items 4.3 and 4.4, the committee will be appointing an auditor for each matter. An auditor who is appointed by this committee would proceed to investigate the candidates or third-party advertisers' election campaign finances and will report back to this committee. The auditor's investigation will be conducted independently and would be carried out to determine whether the candidate or registered third-party advertiser at issue has complied with the provisions of the Municipal Elections Act 1996 relating to election campaign finances. The auditor would be required to submit to this committee, after its investigation, a report that outlines any apparent contraventions of this act by the candidate or registered third-party advertiser. Once the auditor's report returns to this committee would convene another meeting to consider the auditor's report and would, based on the content of the auditor's report, decide whether to commence a legal proceeding against the candidate or third party for any apparent contraventions. The committee, auditors appointed by this committee, and the city clerk do not have any power to determine whether a contravention of the act has occurred. That duty is left to the court. A decision by this committee that an application should be granted or that legal proceedings should be commenced does not mean that a contravention has occurred. This committee is not a court, and it is not a quasi-judicial tribunal. The debates to come before us are not adversarial. There is no cross-examination of witnesses contemplated by our rules of procedure, and there will not be any cross-examination of witnesses or presenters today. For each matter before the committee may hear from the parties and/or representatives of the parties. Each party and their designated persons have a combined 10 minutes to speak. The committee's rules of procedure do not allow for a right of reply from any of the speakers and do not allow for debate between the applicant and the candidate. Committee members may ask questions of the speakers for the purposes of obtaining information and receiving clarification on the matter under discussion. And once all the speakers have spoken, committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions of city staff or the committee's legal counsel, as well as an opportunity to speak on the matter. And then the committee will either recess the meeting to deliberate in private or defer that decision until a later time. Having said all that, now we'll move to item 4.1 on the agenda, which is the city clerk's report with respect to an apparent contravention of the contribution limits under the Municipal Elections Act 1996 for the 2022 municipal elections for Janet Foley. I'm understanding that the following designated persons are here on behalf of the contributor, the candidate Clark Kelly and Lauren Sloan from Parker Prinz Labano. We've received written submissions from Clark Kelly already. Is it the intention of Mr. Kelly or Ms. Sloan to make submissions now?
They're just coming online now, Chair.
Yes, it is my intention to do that, Chair.
Thank you. If you're ready to proceed, you have 10 minutes to make your submissions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And as noted, Ms. Sloan is here with me today, and I will be handing it over to her after I deliver some brief remarks and go through a few documents, which you have already seen as they were circulated yesterday. So first of all, I just want to let you know that I appreciate the important role that this committee plays in safeguarding our democratic process and to ensure the integrity of our municipal elections. So I'm happy to have the opportunity to appear before you today and clear up what I think is simply an administrative error on my part when submitting my financial statement to Elections Ottawa, in particular, my Form 4 of my submission. I'm also happy that Ms. Foley does not have to be here today because this is not her mistake, it is mine, and I regret that she was put in this position. The conversation today, and I appreciate that this was confirmed by the interim clerk on December 5th through email to me, is focused on one donor and the appearance that they donated more than the maximum allowable amount, specifically by making two separate $1,200 donations. So I'll start with the easy part. I did receive a donation from Janet Foley on September 6th by way of e-transfer for $1,200 directly into my campaign bank account. So that's clear. The issue here is the appearance of a donation from Janet for the same amount on August 19th, which I can assure the committee it was never deposited into my bank account, and that Ms. Foley made, in fact, only one contribution to my 2022 municipal election campaign. On August 19th, I arrived at the Foley House as they had indicated they wanted to support my efforts to become the Ward 5 councillor. This also happened to be the day that my first child was due to be born. Needless to say, I was a little bit distracted, and as a first-time candidate, taking donations and filling out receipts was not something I had very much experience with. So sorry, I was just getting some feedback there. I walked away with what I thought were two donations, one from Sean Foley and one from Mark and Janet Foley for a total of $2,400. So my daughter was not born that day. So when I got home, I had a chance to look at everything that I had gathered. I noticed that the donations that had been made were from checks from a business. So at that point, that was on the same day that I had been at their house. So at that point, I notified the Foleys of the misunderstanding. I ripped up the two checks and they were not deposited in my account. Again, this will be shown in my bank statements, which I will go through later and which you have already seen. Since I had already issued and provided receipts to Sean Foley as well as Mark and Janet Foley, I decided to write not accepted on my pink copy, as well as the yellow copy that was provided to Elections Ottawa for both checks. So I did this in the unlikely event that those receipts were sent to the city for a rebate, and I wanted to make sure that there was documentation of the fact that they were not accepted. So my error occurred when filling out Form 4 and marking Sean Foley's donation as not accepted, but I failed to do that for the one from Mark and Janet Foley. My only explanation for this is simple human error, and I think that's why we are sitting here together today. So, Mr. Pilo, if you don't mind bringing up the documents that I had sent yesterday on the screen, that would be most appreciated. But since the Form 4 was in my report, you will see that on August 19th, there were two entries made for that date, one from Sean Foley, one from Mark and Janet, which was marked down as just Janet on the form, as I could only put one name. So as you can see here, I wrote not accepted on the copy that was submitted to Elections Ottawa on March 30th. And if you want to go down, you can see the same for Janet Foley. And again, these two receipts are indicative of the two donations that appear on Form 4 that were not donated or were not deposited into my bank account, but I failed to indicate that for this one. So if you can scroll down a little bit, you'll see, maybe just up a bit. Oh, my apologies. Maybe that's lower. So there's four if you go through my campaign, you can stop right there. Just go back up to that first statement. So you can see that by looking at the statements that there were 4 donations for $1,200 that came into my bank account. One from Janet Foley, one from Murray Kelly, one from Michael Kelly. So you can see that my family came through big for me, and one from a numbered company. That donation was subsequently returned through bank draft, which is also evident on my bank statement from September. So as you can see, all $1,200 donations were indicated there. And actually, Mr. Pila, if you could bring that back up. So we can scroll through those statements. And again, I'm sure that these have been reviewed by the committee as they were circulated yesterday. But if we could just scroll through each month, you can see that I've highlighted the $1,200 donations. Great. Seems we're experiencing some technical difficulties here. Can you pause the time while we fix the issue? Please, Chair.
Yes, that's fine. The timer itself. Oh, no, the timer has stopped.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Apologies for that, Chair.
Okay, great. So here you can see the first month that I opened my campaign bank account, one $1,200 donation on July 4th. And if you scroll down, I believe it's on the 13th of July, you will see the one from my brother, Michael Kelly, and the associated receipt number. You can keep going because I've already mentioned that. So here's the next one. That was the one from the numbered company. That went directly into my bank account because I had automatic deposits on. As you will see later on in my statements, that was returned via bank draft because it was ineligible. So if you want to continue down, here you'll see the actual donation that I did receive from Janet Foley via bank draft on September 6th with the associated receipt number 12404. And as you can see that on the details of the receipt, they match with the deposit from September 6th. So if you want to continue to scroll, and I'm sure that you've all seen this, and there's the return of the donation to the numbered company, just in case anyone was interested in that. And then if you continue, throughout the rest of these statements, there does not appear any other $1,200 donation. So I think this is an administrative error on my part by not indicating that on my form. I think that we've established by looking at this, and you can look more carefully when you go and do your deliberations, that reviewing all my campaign bank statements, providing a copy of each to you, that a total of 4 $1,200 donations were made, only one of which was from Janet Foley with receipt number 12404 under the name Janet Foley, matching the e-transfer deposited into my account on the same date listed on the receipt. The only other donations of $1,200 were from my father, my brother, and an e-transfer from a numbered account, which was subsequently returned. So having seen this, I'm hoping that this satisfies the committee that there was no other donation made by Janet Foley, and that no rules were broken in the process. And I will now hand it over to Ms. Sloan.
Hello. So I'm here representing the auditor from Parker Prince Labano. We performed the municipal elections audit for Mr. Kelly. We did 100% audit testing on the audit campaign, or the campaign records. We traced all deposits in the bank to donation receipts. And I can attest, based on what you've heard from Mr. Kelly, that noted beside Sean Foley's 1,200 and Janet and Mark's Foley's 1,200 on his spreadsheet that no money was deposited and no receipts were issued for those 2 amounts. I can also confirm that there were in fact 4 deposits of $1,200 into the campaign account, like we just saw, one for Janet Foley, which was receipted, one for Murray Kelly, which was receipted, and one for Michael Kelly, which was receipted, and then one from a numbered company that was deposited and subsequently returned, and there was no receipt issued. Our testing was completed and is in alignment with everything that Mr. Kelly has stated. I can also confirm that this was purely a clerical mistake on our end, whereby we left the donors on table 3 of the report for more transparency. However, we failed to adjust the ineligible contributions to include a third $1,200. So it did show 2,400 as ineligible. It should have been 36 to account for the Janet Foley that was never in fact deposited. It's a clerical error, and and if we change it, it does not change the form in any other way except the candidate contribution. So in closing, our testing shows that Janet Foley, in fact, only contributed $1,200 and only received one valid donation receipt from Clark Kelly. And, you know, if we need to fix this form and resubmit, we are totally willing to do that. So just let us know.
Thank you. Anything further from Ms. Sloan or Mr. Kelly?
Nothing further. I think we've made the presentation that we wanted to make today, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. And in fact, I will now ask my fellow committee members if there are any questions for Mr. Kelly or Ms. Sloan. Okay, seeing none. Submissions from designated persons have now closed, and I will ask my members if they have any questions for city staff, Raymond, Shabbat, Grant Thornton, or committee counsel. Seeing none, do any members wish to make any comments on this matter in our open meeting? And since that does not appear to be the case, we will recess the open meeting and deliberate in private on this matter pursuant to subsection 88.33 sub 5.1 of the Municipal Elections Act, and we'll reconvene to report on our decision. Thank you. Eric, if I could just ask a technical question here, since we're doing this completely virtually, do we need to leave the Zoom meeting to attend the separate meeting link that's been sent around? What's your technical preference here?
Chair, my suggestion would be that we can move on our end the members to attendees, the attendees section of the Zoom meeting. That should allow your various devices to connect your audio to the Teams meeting. If you're having technical difficulties, though, leaving the Zoom meeting entirely would be a good troubleshooting step for the members.
Okay. Let's try that first step then. Thank you.
And if you could do the same for me and Darren, Eric, that would be appreciated.
No problem. Chair, Mr. Plotkin will need to accept the prompt to be promoted to panelist.
We will send him an email if that's, oh, I think he's got it now.
Yes, thank
All
you.
right. Are we all present and accounted for again, I think? Looks like everybody's here. Okay, then the committee will now reconvene. Member McGoldrick, could you please move the decision motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. So be it resolved that the committee has issues the following decision and reasons in relation to the Clark matter. Upon receiving the report titled the City Clerk's Report with respect to an apparent contravention of contribution limits under the Municipal Elections Act, excuse me, 1996 for the 2022 municipal elections, Janet Foley, and upon hearing the representations and or reading the written submissions and documents submitted by the auditor and the candidate, this committee hereby decides not to commence legal proceedings against contributor Janet Foley for apparent contravention of the contribution limits under the Municipal Elections Act 1996. The committee heard evidence from candidate Clark Kelly and Ms. Lauren Sloan of Parker Prince Levano, Mr. Kelly's auditor. Mr. Kelly's evidence was that Ms. Foley in fact only contributed the allowable $1,200 on September 6, 2022. Mr. Kelly then explained that earlier, on August 19, 2022, he attended the Foley residence. At that time, 2 contributions in the amount of $1,200 each were provided, one by Ms. Foley and her husband, and one by Sean Foley. Those checks were from business accounts, and Mr. Kelly explained that these contributions were not accepted. He advised that he ripped up the checks received on August 19, 2022. He then marked on the related receipts that these contributions were not accepted. Mr. Kelly also took the committee through his bank statements showing that only Ms. Foley's September 6, 2022 contribution was accepted and retained. Ms. Sloan appeared in her capacity as Mr. Kelly's campaign finance auditor, and she advised that she performed a 100% testing on Mr. Kelly's contribution records. She likewise confirmed that the checks issued on August 19, 2022 were not deposited. Ms. Sloan advised that the auditor made a clerical error in not recording the fact that those contributions were not deposited. This committee accepts Mr. Kelly's and Ms. Sloan's evidence. The committee is satisfied that the apparent overcontribution was indeed a clerical error. In light of the foregoing, the committee will not commence legal proceedings against Ms. Foley. Mr. Chair, I believe you're on mute.
I think we'd all be better at that by now. Thank you, Member McGoldrick. Members of the committee, is the motion carried? And are there any dissents? Seeing none, the motion is carried, and we will move to item 4.2 on the agenda, which is the City Clerk's report with respect to an apparent contravention of contribution limits under the Municipal Elections Act 1996 for the 2022 municipal elections. Jennifer Kwong. Members have received a written submission from Harry Mortimer of Mortimer, Kostashenko Patel, Chartered Professional Accountants. And I understand that the following designated person is here on behalf of the contributor, Jennifer Kwong, for whom we also have a written submission on file. I see Ms. Kwong is being promoted to panelist to be able to speak. Ms. Kwong, is it just yourself today, or do you have anyone also appearing with you you're sharing your time with?
It's just me today.
Okay. Well then, with that, you have 10 minutes to make your submissions.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Election Compliance Audit Committee. My name is Jennifer Kwong, and I'm here today to outline the sequence of events that led to an alleged contravention of contribution limits under the Municipal Elections Act 1996 in the 2022 municipal elections. I hope that this plain language overview, along with the document provided by the auditor, Mr. Harry Mortimer, CPA, will clarify the fact that there has not been an overcontribution. To quote the summary of Mr. Mortimer's written submission, quote, "In fact, there was not a contravention of the contribution limits under the Municipal Elections Act. the total contribution amount made by Jennifer Kwong should be recognized as $1,200. This matter relates simply to a reporting anomaly where the available schedules in Form 4 do not allow for the detailed disclosure of a returned contribution after the January 3rd, 2023 period end quote. I'll now review the timeline, which was submitted to the committee on December 7th, if you would like to follow along. So timeline of events. July 11th, 2022, I purchased vanilla from Bina Shaw's campaign fundraiser for $28. No receipt was issued or received at that time. At the time of purchase, the candidate and contributor were not aware that the purchase would be considered a contribution. May 24th, 2022 to October 15th, 2023, I worked on the Bina Shaw campaign design materials. October 28th, I sent an invoice to the Bina Shaw campaign. The total cost of services before taxes was $1,730, of which $1,200 is identified as a campaign contribution. I just wanted to note that I didn't recognize the $28 vanilla purchase as a contribution. And then March 31st, 2023, the auditor's report prepared by Mr. Harry Mortimer, CPA, is filed with the City of Ottawa. The report covers the period from May 9th, 2022 to January 3rd, 2023. On page 4, Mr. Mortimer identifies the $28 in question as ineligible. So he was able to catch that had gone unnoticed by me and the candidate. It is deducted from the candidate's total contributions received. So in other words, the $28 was not included in the contributions received. And at the time of filing, the $28 was not yet returned to me. In July 2023, I received the $28 refund from Bina Shaw in the form of cash. Now, there's no written record as there's no requirement from the city to report this activity. So this takes us to November 28th, 2023. The Election Compliance Committee delivered a package to me identifying a, quote, apparent contravention of contribution limits. So once we spoke to Mr. Mortimer and Bina Shaw and realized why this was, Bina Shaw purchased a money order made out to Jennifer Kwong. This serves as a written record of the money that was returned to me. December 1st, 2023, Mr. Mortimer submits the document to the committee. Mr. Mortimer submits a document to the committee that shows that there was no overcontribution. In the document, he explains that there is no mechanism to report contributors' overcontribution refunds outside of the reporting period. I hope that the information provided by Mr. Mortimer, along with the timeline presented today, will clarify the matter. So to summarize, first, there has not been a contravention of contribution limits. And second, through the reporting process, there is no mechanism to report refunds issued to overcontributors after the audit's reporting period. I welcome any questions if you require further clarification. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Kwong. Just to confirm, we have no other speakers on this matter on the agenda before we move to questions?
You're correct.
Thank you. Committee members, do we have any questions for Ms. Kwong? No, just one from me, Ms. Kwong. Just so I'm clear, have you received both a money order and then a cash refund from July? So
I have not physically received the money order. Bina has been out of town for personal matters, so I've received the cash. That's not the reason she made the money order was so that you can have a proof of the money transfer that has already happened. So no, I have not received that money order, but I did receive the refund in cash.
Okay. Seeing no other questions from the committee members, the submissions from designated persons have now closed. Do the members have any questions for city staff, Raymond, Shabbat, Grant Thornton, or committee council? Seeing none, do any members wish to make any comments on this matter in open meeting? And seeing that there is no wish to do so, the committee will recess its open meeting and deliberate in private on this matter pursuant to subsection 88.33 sub 5.1 of the Municipal Elections Act and return with its decision. Okay, do we have everyone back? Looks like we do. Seeing all of my committee members. Okay. The committee will now reconvene. Member Eldar could please move the decision motion.
Sounds good. Mic check. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good day, everyone. Be it resolved that the committee issues the following decision and reasons. Upon receiving the report titled "The City Clerk's Report with respect to an apparent contravention of the contribution limit under the Municipal Election Act 1996 for the 2020 new municipal election, Jennifer Kwong, and upon hearing the representation and written submission and documents submitted by the contributor, this committee hereby decides not to commence legal proceeding against contributor Jennifer Kwong for an apparent contravention of the contribution limit under the Municipal Election Act 1996. The committee has considered the evidence tendered by Ms. Kwong and Mr. Harry Mortimer, CPA, the candidate's campaign auditor. Given the small amount of the apparent contravention and the likely legal and administrative cost of commencing legal proceeding, the committee exercises its discretion not to commence legal proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Eldar. Is the motion carried? And are there any dissents? Seeing none, the motion is carried. We now move to item 4.3, appointment of external licensed auditor to conduct an election compliance audit of candidate Doug Thompson of Ward 20 Osgood from the 2022 municipal election. I understand that the following designated persons are in attendance. Mr. Phillips, the applicant, on his own behalf. I understand that the applicant is viewing the meeting and has not requested to speak. Do the members have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, then my understanding is that the following designated person is here on behalf of the respondent, candidate Doug Thompson, Stéphane Emar-Chabot from Sico-Guibault. Mr. Emar-Chabot, I believe you are now present. Thank you. You have 10 minutes to make your submission, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, committee members. So my name is Stéphane Emar-Chabot. I act on behalf of Doug Thompson on this file. The purpose of my appearance today is simply to ask the committee for a deferral of this matter. The committee undoubtedly knows that the matter has been appealed. The counsel for the committee and myself have been working diligently to expedite that appeal as quickly as possible under the parameters that are allowed within the judicial system at the moment. We have a hearing date on the substance of the appeal set for March, and it simply strikes us as a bit premature to engage in the audit review process of the expenses, which will mean further expenditures and time for Mr. Thompson while this appeal is ongoing. In order to minimize legal proceedings and get to the nub of the issue as quickly as possible, which is the interpretation of the powers of this committee and how they should be exercised after the latest round of revisions of the statute, which took away from council and placed into an independent committee the powers that you have. There are divergent views on how those powers are to be exercised. Different municipalities are not doing it all the same way, and there is conflicting case law on the interpretation of those provisions. So pending the outcome, which will be of benefit not just for Mr. Thompson, but for the work of this committee generally, we would ask that the appointment of an auditor be deferred until we have a decision on the legality of the initial decision to undertake the audit that was taken last summer. Obviously, we don't want to stall matters indefinitely, but it would make sense. And as I said, to minimize the need for legal costs and proceedings, Mr. Thompson did not seek and does not intend to seek, I certainly have no instructions on that point, a suspension or some kind of motion to put all this in abeyance through judicial proceedings until the appeal is resolved. But in it's simply a show of, I would say, respect for the appeal, respect for the amount of money that will have to be incurred for the audit on both sides, both taxpayers and Mr. Thompson, and to make sure that those resources and that energy is not wasted, we would ask that the appointment of the auditor be deferred. If there are administrative reasons for which an auditor has to be chosen at this point, contractual or otherwise, then we would ask that the auditor be directed not to commence the actual audit work until the appeal has been resolved. So those are simply, that is the only purpose of my presence this morning, and those are my submissions on this point.
Thank you, Monsieur Amar Chabot. Do members have any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, submissions from designated persons have now closed. Do members have any questions for city staff or committee counsel? Do any members wish to make any comments on this matter in open meeting? And as no one has any comments to make in open meeting, the committee will recess its open meeting and deliberate in private on this matter pursuant to subsection 88.33 sub 5.1 of the Municipal Elections Act, and will return with our decision. Thank you.
Chair, if the meeting could stand at ease momentarily, please. Just assisting a member.
Sure.
All members have now joined Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Pello, maybe it's just on my Zoom, but it appears that we're still showing there we go. Thank you. The committee will now reconvene. If Member McGoldrick could please move the decision motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the matter of the applicant Ted Phillips and the candidate Doug Thompson, be it resolved that the committee has reached the following decision, that the report recommendations be amended as follows, that the Election Compliance Audit Committee 1 approve the appointment of Raymond Chabot Grant Thornton, an external licensed auditor, to conduct an election compliance audit of the campaign finances of candidate Doug Thompson of Ward 20 Osgood from the 2022 municipal elections as outlined in this report. Item 2, delegate the authority to finalize the contract and audit plan to the city clerk or his designate in consultation with the committee's legal counsel as outlined in this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Member McGoldrick. Is the motion carried? Are there any dissents? I am seeing and hearing none. The motion is carried. We'll move now to item 4.4 on the agenda, appointment of external licensed auditor to conduct an election compliance audit of third-party advertiser Horizon Ottawa from the 2022 municipal elections. Before we begin, just as a matter of clarification for the record, as noted in the minutes from our previous meeting, at the time, Member McGoldrick was unable to be present when we voted on the motion. And in accordance with our committee procedures, Member McGoldrick will not be taking any further actions with respect to the committee's decisions in this matter. So when we convene privately to deliberate, Member McGoldrick will not be present and he will not cast a vote in this matter or any subsequent decisions flowing from it. I understand that, again, Mr. Phillips is present today, but he's not requested to speak. And so do any members of the committee have any questions for the applicant? Seeing and hearing none, I note that there are no designated persons in attendance on behalf of the respondent today, which means that submissions from designated persons have now closed. Do you members have any questions for city staff or committee council? Seeing and hearing none, do any members wish to make any comments on this matter in open meeting? Seeing and hearing none, the committee will recess its open meeting and deliberate in private on this matter pursuant to subsection 88.33 sub 5.1 of the Municipal Elections Act, and we will return with our decision. I believe we're all back. Kathy, are you ready?
I'm just trying to open my email on my antiquated computer here.
No problem, we'll give you a moment.
Yeah. Time, so that should be down here. Definitely need to get a new computer. Okay. Okay, so I'm all good now.
Okay, thanks very much. Then the committee will now reconvene, and if the vice chair could please move the decision motion.
Moved by myself that the report recommendations be amended as follows: that the Election Compliance Audit Committee approve the appointment of BDO Canada LLP, an external licensed auditor, to conduct an election compliance audit of the campaign finances of third-party advertiser Horizon Ottawa from the 2022 municipal elections, as outlined in this report, and delegate the authority to finalize the contract and audit plan to the city clerk or his designate in consultation with the committee's legal counsel as outlined in this report.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Is the motion carried?
Carried.
Any dissents? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Which brings us to item 4.5 on the agenda, report from the City Clerk with respect to the review of contributions to candidates and registered third-party advertisers' supplementary financial statements filed under the Municipal Elections Act 1996 for the 2022 municipal elections. This last item on the agenda is an information report. And for the committee members, including Mr. McGoldrick, I ask if there are any questions on this report for city staff, for RCGT or committee council.
Nope.
Seeing and hearing none, do any members wish to make any comments? Then the report recommendation that the Election Compliance Audit Committee receive this report for information. Is the report received?
Received.
Thank you all. The next item on the agenda is inquiries. Are there any inquiries? Seeing and hearing none. Item 6, other business. Is there any other business? Seeing and hearing none, we move to adjournment. Item 7, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.